what was the biggest shock when you got over there? Like when you first put boots on the ground, what was like that like, oh shit? Like, cause I had that moment in the NFL where I was like, oh, I'm in the league now. Like, okay.
Yeah. The first thing for me was seeing a rocket go over my head, right? Like that's whenever you're like, okay, this is real. This is no longer training. That thing is about to go blow up. We're watching Bosra get bombed, and when you see that's when okay, this is really happening. Then the unfortunate toils of war, right? You're rolling down the road, you see bodies dead, and you realize, okay, lives are being taken here, and that's when it really sinks in.
So when the bullets first start flying, right? And you're in there with everybody you're with. Really, is like it's their first experience with this as well, right?
Right.
Like like your whole platoon, right? It's a platoon, right?
Yeah,
I just don't want to like if I say something wrong, just tell me I'm wrong.
it's
Like,
okay. Yeah, yeah.
because I only know what
I
I
love it when civilians read military bios. They don't understand the acronyms, and yeah,
right, yeah.
yeah.
I'm the same way. I know enough about it, but because the funny thing is I was actually if it wasn't for football, Navy SEALs was like the next step.
You
That's what
can't swim. Come on, big
I'm a
old boy
great
like you.
swimmer.
Are you really?
Abby, I could swim, can I? I'm a
Swim to the
great
bottom.
swimmer.
Yeah.
I'll swim. I sink straight to the bottom.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome.
But so I've always been
Yeah,
interested and always been kind of like obsessed. Like it's like I'm always as a kid I was obsessed with like military and watching. I always watched like old Vietnam
yeah.
War movies. Like I just thought that was like this is what I'm gonna. It's either prison, football, or the military.
Man, I'm right there with you.
So it's like those really, you talk about your childhood, and it was very similar for me.
Yeah.
My mom was in and out of jail all the time. I didn't have a father, so I had to figure it out on my own. And
Yeah. Which, by the way, like people don't know how much science goes into selecting special operations soldiers, operators, right? And there is so much science that goes into choosing, that war fighter that can go through so much adversity and come out on top. And one of the big commonalities is that they've gone through things in their childhood,
yeah,
right?
yeah, because they've been through adversity.
They've been punched in the mouth before,
Yep,
figuratively, literally,
and they're
right?
not in prison, so
Right,
so they got something that everybody else doesn't have.
right,
And you can always tell when you meet somebody if they have that or not.
right.
Especially, and then you can really tell when shit gets whenever like things get hairy, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a high stress situation, some guys, I'm sure that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Is, did you see guys like all the training was out the window and they just kind of were like, "Fuck,
Man, that's
like
why I
I
became a
can't
Green
believe I'm
Beret.
here."
That's why I went SF, man, is because I did the initial invasion of 03, in Afghanistan as in the conventional army. And that's what I saw. Right. Cause you go through basic and I'm one of those guys, I just jump all in and I'm all in and they say, hey, we're training to be a warfighter. Okay, that's what I'm training to be, even though I was shooting missiles. Right. But I'm still going to be a soldier. And whenever I realized saw the first people that weren't those that are going to lean forward into the battle, I'm like, that's not who I want to deploy with. And I had the wherewithal to know that this wasn't going to be a one deployment, type war. We were going to be there for a while. And I said, okay, if I'm going to be deploying, I'm going to go with the best. And whenever I got back, that's whenever I went, to selection, which, that a lot of people don't know that you don't just raise your hand and say, hey, I want to go be a Green Beret. And
They
go
got
to
to tell
Green.
you you're going to be.
That's
Hey,
right.
do you want to be?
You go to selection process, which is 25 days long. And if you're still standing at the end of those 25 days, they choose who gets to go to Green Beret school.
Yeah.
Right.
So what does that 25 days look like?
It's man, it's the biggest mind fuck you'll ever go to. And that's the only word I know to use because the whole time you never know how good you're doing. Like it's not like the normal military movies where they're yelling, "Hey, maggot, get up the rope," and yelling at you and doing this. Like you never know how good you're doing the entire time. Like think about so there are about 400 guys that started my selection class, right? So 25 days. SEALs got Hell Week, we got Hell Month.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a competition, but
No, I
It
mean,
was.
hey, special forces guys, I always thought had it, it's a little harder.
No, it's I poke, but same but different, right? We got a whole different mindset, and but yeah, so you go through those 25 days and you get trained or you get looked at in so many different from a mental perspective. We do cognitive tests, we do intellectual tests, we do personality tests. Well, like people don't know that.
Yeah.
That's sleep deprivation test and Then, oh yeah, by the way, we do physical tests, and the whole time you never know if you're doing good. You actually have to go um, take all the commands by this board that's out by the cadre hut. Like, so if you don't watch, and see them, hey, this is what the next task is, you get kicked out, right? Like you
Mhm.
just for not paying attention, and people are just constantly dwindling out, here's another example. So you have a quad that you go into and you have a roster number. You're not called a name, you're not called, a rank. You're just, I was rostered 318, and they do an about face, and then they start calling off numbers, and then you never see those people again.
Yep, they're gone.
Well, they called us the formation again, and they called off numbers. I was one of those numbers they called off. We were the ones that stayed.
Oh, wow.
Like, so the whole time, man, you just never know it. Like, and again,
So
day
you didn't
20,
know what was going on with those
brother,
guys.
no idea, man.
I was
Like,
gonna try to relate to that because we used to call it the Grim Reaper. So we in the preseason in the NFL,
yeah,
you'll come in after a preseason game and do like we'll be in like the weight room, and then Sky would come in there and just start picking people out and be like,
yeah,
"Hey, come with me," and they'd go, and then you'd never see them again.
wow,
And it was like, oh, then they just cut. These guys are all getting cut,
yeah,
and it was just like the Grim Reapers here. Oh shit, you need to come in there and just pull guys out. So, but it's not they weren't getting selected. They were getting getting the boot. But
right.
obviously that's the competition side of it.
Like, even that, we don't even know what the competition is, man.
Right? You're just doing
Like,
what you do.
again, read the board. It'll say ruck march, formation this time. Be there. So you're there at formation. Then they break you up into groups, and then guys reading a clipboard and like, candidate, you're to follow the cones and run along and designate a route till told to quit. Do you have any questions? No, go. You don't know if you're going 10 miles, 10 hours. Like,
Yeah.
you literally don't know. And one time we did it had to have been about a 4-hour ruck, 60, 70 pounds on your back. And immediately when he got back, they wrote on the board, PT formation go. So we had to change out of this into tennis shoes, and we started running, and then, okay, candidate, you're running along a designated route to told to quit. We didn't know if we were going to run around the block or run another 10 hours. Right. And there's, it's out at Camp McCall. Right. And you start to know,
Where's that at?
it's out in North Carolina by Fort Bragg.
What time of the year was it?
I did it in November, because I
Oh.
never will forget the only one time I ever thought about quitting, and it was day one. Monday Night Football was on, and we were getting rained on, and we were doing an equipment shakeout. And I'm like, man, it's time to, if you're going to do it now, right now. If not, never, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, Monday Night Football's on, this, but yeah, it was in November, but yeah, we started running, and there was like a Y, which you start to learn it out there. And we realized if we go right, that's going to be the short run. If you go left, it's going to be the long. But we went left and we started going. And then once we realized it's going to be a long run, like half the people quit. That was in my group.
Really?
But we just went down and we went crest over this hill, and there was a 5-ton truck waiting to pick us up because they just wanted to see if we was going to keep going.
Wow.
And then they picked us up in the truck, brought us back. We only ran for about 15, 20 minutes.
Oh wow! They just wanted to see who would quit.
Wanted to see who would quit.
They must know. They must know that like this breaks guys.
It does.
Right? It'll break them.
Yeah.
So that's just. I mean, that's really unbelievable.
Yeah, I could go on for an hours talking
15
about
minutes. Yeah, I bet the training side of it. So wait, you were in the army for how long until you became a
I was only in the Army for a couple years. Like I said, I went in, did basic training, went straight to war. And then when I got back, I'm like, I need to be this guy.
was it after your first deployment?
Mhm.
You were like, I don't want to be out there with
No, I
these.
don't want to be these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because to your point, right? Because that's when you're going to lean, and kind of going back to, getting shot at in combat and conventional to the first time I got shot at, SF guys. I just saw a bunch of hard dudes just leaning forward and returning fire.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that was
No hesitation.
no hesitation, just going to work. Right. What's the battle plan? Let's make it happen. We got distance, how far is he? How many, what direction? All right, let's go to work.
Okay.
And that, to your point, right? When you get to the pros, right, it's totally different than it is at any other level when you're playing like that. That's when I realized I was in the pros.
Yeah, it was. It's funny because it's like when you're in there with like the second team guys, like the backups, it's never as tight and clean as you want it to be, right? The communication's not perfect. Everything's just a little off and when you're used to being with the ones, when I say ones, I'm talking about the starters, like the starting core, the starting 11, and then whenever like a couple other pieces or a couple starters are out and they have like the backups in, it's never as clean,
Right.
because it's just like you build that, you know, that trust in each other.
Right.
And like, Von Miller and I played next to each other for so long, we didn't have to speak.
Exactly.
It was like an eyed look. Like I just looked at him a certain way and he's like, I got it.
We were the same way in the house, brother.
I'm sure it was the
Same
same
way when you
exact
go in
way.
the house, you just look at each other, give a nod, and you just go to work.
Yep.
Because it's just that repetition. We do it
Mhm.
over and over and over. That's when people say, like, what makes special forces, special. I mean, for sure, the hardware matters, right? The guys that we get, they're top of their shape, all that hard stuff. At the end of the day, we get so much training over and over again by the best of the best that to where that's just going to be the outcome.
Yeah. Success is there's no other outcome.
Right.
Like you're going to be successful.